Most people who fail with potatoes in containers do not fail because the container is too small. They fail because the soil gets too heavy, the watering swings from dry to soaked, or the young stems are never covered at the right time. And if you have ever tipped over a pot after 3 months and found 6 sad little potatoes at the bottom, there is a good chance one of those mistakes was hiding in plain sight. A laundry basket does not look like gardening equipment. It looks cheap, ordinary, and almost too simple to trust. But that is exactly why it is worth looking at carefully. A sturdy plastic laundry basket already has what many potato containers are missing: drainage, side airflow, depth, and enough room to build the crop upward instead of wasting ground space outward. Now, I want to be plain about this from the start. This is not a magic trick. A basket will not fix bad soil, weak seed potatoes, poor light, or lazy watering. But when you use it properly, it gives you control over the very things that make potatoes succeed: loose soil, steady moisture, covered stems, cool roots, and an easy harvest. For a backyard, a patio, a small allotment, or even a sunny balcony, that is a powerful little system. The reason potatoes work so well in a deep container comes down to how the plant grows. Potatoes are not hanging from ordinary roots like apples on a tree. The edible tubers form on underground stems called stolons. When the young potato plant grows upward, and you gradually cover part of that stem with more loose soil, you give the plant a better protected zone where tubers can develop without being exposed to light. That last part matters more than many beginners realize. Myth: hilling potatoes is only about making the plant produce more. Fact: hilling is also about keeping the developing potatoes dark, cool, and protected. If sunlight reaches the tubers, they can turn green. Green potatoes may contain higher levels of solanine, and they should not be eaten. So when you hill potatoes properly, you are not just chasing a bigger harvest. You are preventing a real food safety problem. This is where the laundry basket earns its keep. In the ground, you usually dig a trench, plant the seed potatoes, and pull soil up around the plants once or twice. That can work beautifully if you have good garden soil and room to spare. But in a basket, you can start low and build upward in layers. You plant near the bottom, let the shoots rise, then add more mix around them as they grow. Done on time, this creates a deep, loose column of growing space. The mistake is waiting too long. If you let the plants get tall and leafy before you add soil, the lower stems harden, the plant has already spent energy in the wrong place, and you miss the best window. The first hilling is the one I would not ignore. When the shoots are about 6 to 8 inches tall, cover most of that growth and leave only the top 2 or 3 inches showing. It feels wrong the first time you do it. It looks like you are burying a healthy plant. But potatoes are one of the few crops where that kind of controlled covering is part of the job. Before you ever put soil in the basket, choose the basket carefully. Do not use a solid storage tub unless you are willing to drill plenty of holes. Potatoes hate sitting in soggy soil, and a sealed container is one of the fastest ways to rot them. You want a sturdy plastic laundry basket with holes in the sides and bottom, at least 18 inches tall if possible. Taller is helpful, but stronger matters too. Once it is filled with damp potting mix, it can become heavy enough that you will not want to move it. That is another small mistake that causes big frustration. People fill the container first, then realize it is in the wrong spot. Choose the location before you plant. Potatoes need good light, usually 6 hours or more of direct sun. In cooler parts of the United States, Canada, the UK, and Northern Europe, full sun is usually your friend. In very hot areas, especially where summer heat comes early, morning sun with a little afternoon relief can keep the basket from overheating. The soil is where this method either works or fails. Do not fill the basket with heavy garden soil just because it is free. In a bed, garden soil has worms, structure, and open space around it. In a container, that same soil can compact into a dense block that holds too much water and too little air. Potatoes need a loose, well-drained mix. A quality potting mix is the easiest option. If you are blending your own, use compost for nutrition, coconut coir, or a peat-free growing medium for moisture holding, and perlite or another drainage material to keep the mix open. This is one of those quiet corrections that changes the whole harvest. Beginners often worry most about fertilizer, but the structure of the soil comes first. If the mix is compacted and wet, more fertilizer will not save the crop. It may just feed a big green plant sitting above a poor root zone. University Extension Services often remind growers that containers need both drainage and consistent moisture, and potatoes are a perfect example of why that balance matters. Now let us talk about the potatoes you plant, because this is another place people try to save money and end up losing the season. Grocery store potatoes sometimes sprout, and yes, you can occasionally grow a plant from them. But that does not make them the best choice. Some are treated to slow sprouting, and more importantly, they are not sold as disease-free planting stock. For a serious crop, use certified seed potatoes from a garden supplier. They are not fancy. They are simply the safer starting point. For one laundry basket, you do not need many. 3 or 4 seed potato pieces are usually enough. Crowding the basket with 6, 7, or 8 pieces does not guarantee more food. More often, it creates too many stems fighting for the same water, light, and nutrients. The result can be lots of green growth and a basket full of undersized potatoes. Give each piece space to breathe. If your seed potatoes are small, about the size of a hen's egg, you can plant them whole. If they are larger, cut them into pieces, but make sure every piece has at least 2 strong eyes. Use a clean knife, and do not make the pieces too tiny. A seed piece needs enough stored energy to push strong growth before the new roots take over. And here is the step impatient gardeners skip. Let the cut pieces dry before planting. Lay them out for a day or two in a cool, airy place, away from direct sun. The cut surface will firm up and form a protective skin. That little pause can be the difference between a strong start and a rotting seed piece buried in damp soil. It is not dramatic, but good gardening is often like that. The small, boring steps are the ones that keep the crop alive. Once your seed pieces have dried and firmed up, the basket is ready to become a small potato bed. Start with 4 to 6 inches of loose potting mix in the bottom. Do not pack it down hard. Just level it gently with your hand. Potatoes need contact with the soil, but they do not need to be pressed into a brick. Set 3 or 4 seed pieces on that first layer, spaced around the basket instead of piled in the middle. Put the cut side down if there is a clear cut side, and aim the strongest eyes upward if you can see them. Do not worry about making it perfect. Potato shoots know how to find their way. What matters more is spacing, clean seed, and good soil around them. Cover the pieces with another 3 or 4 inches of mix. At this stage, the basket should still look mostly empty, and that is exactly right. A common mistake is filling the basket to the top on planting day. That gives you nowhere to hill later, and it removes the main advantage of the whole method. You are not planting a full basket. You are building one over time. Water the basket slowly until moisture begins draining from the bottom. This first watering settles the mix around the seed pieces and wakes the eyes up. But do not turn the basket into a swamp. If water runs freely out of the holes, stop. One of the easiest ways to ruin container potatoes is to treat the first watering like you are filling a barrel. Now leave the basket alone and watch it. Depending on temperature and variety, green shoots may appear in a week, or they may take closer to 2 or 3. Cool spring weather slows everything down. If your neighbor's garden is already moving and your basket still looks quiet, do not dig around every day to check. That is how people break young sprouts before they ever see daylight. The first visible shoots are an important moment. They usually come up strong, thick, and a little pale at first, then green quickly in the sun. Once they reach 6 to 8 inches above the soil, It is time for the first hilling. This is where many container potato crops are won or lost. Add loose mix around the stems until only the top 2 or 3 inches of leaves remain exposed. Work gently. You are not burying with wet clay or pressing soil around the stem. You are tucking the plant into a deeper, cooler, darker growing column. If the mix is dry, water after hilling. If it is already moist, wait. The goal is steady moisture, not constant wetness. Here is the hidden symptom to watch for. If the plants shoot up fast, look beautiful, and start leaning before you have hilled them, they may be telling you they are stretching faster than you are managing them. Tall green tops can make a gardener feel proud, but with potatoes, unchecked top growth is not always a good sign. You want strong foliage? Yes, but you also want covered lower stems and protected developing tubers. After the first hilling, keep watching the basket every few days. When the plant grows another 6 to 8 inches above the new soil level, hill again. Each time, leave only the top growth showing. In a typical laundry basket, you may do this 3 or 4 times before the soil reaches near the rim. Stop when the basket is filled to within 2 inches of the top. That small empty space matters because you need room to water without washing soil over the sides. This is also the right time to feed lightly. Potatoes are hungry plants, but they do not need to be forced. A balanced organic fertilizer mixed into the added soil can help, especially during the early growing and hilling stage. Compost, worm castings, or a mild granular fertilizer can all work. What you want to avoid is pushing too much nitrogen. Too much nitrogen can give you a magnificent plant above ground and a disappointing harvest below it. That is one of the mild surprises with potatoes. The greenest plant is not always the best crop. A plant that looks like a jungle may be spending more energy on leaves than tubers. Good potato growth is balanced. You want healthy foliage because the leaves feed the plant, but you do not want to create a leaf factory with no reason to make potatoes. Watering is the daily judgment call. Not daily watering necessarily, but daily judgment. Stick your finger into the mix about 2 inches deep. If it feels dry at that depth, water deeply. If it still feels moist, leave it alone. Containers dry faster than the ground, especially on patios, decks, balconies, and windy allotments. In a hot spell, the basket may need water every day. In cool, wet weather, it may need very little. The problem is not just dryness. The problem is swinging from one extreme to the other. Dry for days, then soaked. Forgotten all week, then flooded. That kind of watering stresses the plant and can lead to small tubers, cracking, rough skins, and uneven growth. A steady rhythm is better than heroic rescue watering. If you are in a rainy climate, such as parts of the UK, Ireland, northern France, or the Pacific Northwest, drainage becomes even more important. The basket holes help, but the soil mix still has to be open enough to let water pass through. If the basket sits on a flat surface where water pools underneath, raise it slightly on bricks or wooden slats. That one small lift can keep the lower layer from staying sour and wet. If you are in a hot climate, the warning changes. A black or dark-colored basket can heat up quickly in strong sun. Potatoes like light on their leaves, but the tubers prefer cooler soil. During heat waves, movable containers can be shifted if they are not too heavy, but most filled baskets are hard to move. That is why choosing the right location at the start matters. Morning sun and afternoon shade can be better than all-day baking heat in some regions. Mulch can help once the basket is nearly full. A thin layer of straw, shredded leaves, or clean grass clippings on top can slow evaporation and keep the upper soil cooler. Do not pile it thick against wet stems, and do not use grass clippings that have been treated with herbicides. That mistake can damage a container crop quickly, and because the basket is a closed system, the plant has nowhere else to escape. Now, while the plant is growing, do not ignore the leaves. They are your early warning system. Look under them once or twice a week. Colorado potato beetles, where they are common, can strip plants fast. The adults are easy to recognize, and the orange egg clusters are often tucked under the leaves. Hand-picking works surprisingly well in a small basket crop because you are not walking a field. You are managing one contained plant. Aphids can gather on soft new growth. A firm spray of water often knocks them back. If you use insecticidal soap or any organic spray, follow the label and avoid spraying in strong sun or when pollinators are active. With potatoes, the best pest control is often early attention. 10 minutes of checking can prevent a week of damage. Disease is less common in a well-drained basket than in cold, wet ground, but it can still happen. Yellowing leaves, dark spots, wilting, or mildew should not be ignored. Remove badly affected leaves and keep the foliage as dry as possible when you water. Water the soil, not the plant. Morning watering is best because any splashed leaves can dry before evening. And do not panic over every yellow leaf. Older, lower leaves naturally fade as the plant matures. The question is whether the whole plant is declining too early, or whether a few old leaves are simply aging. Good gardeners learn to tell the difference. A few tired leaves are normal. A plant collapsing while the soil smells wet and sour is a problem. As the basket fills and the plant settles into steady growth, there comes a point where your job changes. Early on, you are building the crop upward. Later, you are protecting what the plant has already started underground. That shift is important, because a potato plant can look busy above the soil, while the real harvest is still small and tender below it. In many varieties, flowers appear somewhere around the middle of the season. They may be white, pink, purple, or bluish depending on the type you planted. Flowers are a useful sign, but they are not a harvest command. They usually tell you tubers are forming, not that the crop is finished. If you want a few small new potatoes for dinner, this is when you can begin checking gently. But if your goal is full-sized potatoes that store well, patience matters. Here is where many gardeners rob themselves. They see flowers, get excited, tip the container out too early, and then blame the method because the potatoes are small. The plant was not finished. It had only begun the serious work. New potatoes are wonderful, tender, and sweet, but they are not the same as mature storage potatoes. Decide which crop you want before you harvest. If you do want a few new potatoes, you can take them without ending the whole plant. Reach carefully into the top layer of soil with your fingers, not a trowel. Feel around near the outer edges where small tubers may be forming. Take only a few, then cover the soil back over. Do not tear through the root zone like you are searching for buried coins. A gentle hand lets the plant keep working. For the main harvest, watch the foliage. As the plant matures, the leaves begin to yellow, the stems lose some strength, and the whole plant slows down. This is not always a disease. It is part of the potato's natural finish. The plant is moving energy into the tubers, and the skins are beginning to toughen. That tougher skin is what allows potatoes to store instead of shriveling or rotting quickly. A common mistake is trying to keep the plant green forever. People see yellowing leaves and start feeding heavily, thinking they are saving the crop. Sometimes that is exactly the wrong move. If the plant is naturally reaching maturity, forcing more leafy growth can delay the finish and may not improve the potatoes at all. There is a time to feed, and there is a time to let the plant complete its work. This is also where watering changes. During active growth, even moisture is important. Near harvest, once most of the foliage has yellowed and the plant is clearly shutting down, you can reduce water. If the weather is dry and the plant is almost finished, stop watering for several days to a week before harvest. Drier soil makes the harvest cleaner, and it helps the skins firm up. Do not do this too early, though. A thirsty plant in full growth will not reward you. There is a hopeful part here for anyone who feels they missed a step earlier. If you hilled late once, or the plant got a little dry for a day, the crop is not automatically ruined. Potatoes are tougher than they look. Correct the problem, return to steady care, and let the plant finish. Many container crops are lost not because of one mistake, but because the gardener panics and starts making 5 more. The real consequence comes when problems are ignored. If tubers get exposed to light, they can turn green. If the basket stays wet at the bottom, rot can travel quietly before you notice it. If beetles strip the foliage, the plant loses the leaves it needs to feed the crop. If you harvest too early, you may turn a promising basket into one meal instead of a proper supply. None of these problems require fancy skill. They require watching. When the foliage is mostly yellow, limp, or dying back, you are close. For storage potatoes, many growers wait until the tops are fully dead, then give the tubers a little more time in the soil if the weather is dry and the container is not waterlogged. Think of it as letting the skins finish. In damp climates, do not leave them sitting in wet mix for too long. In dry, protected conditions, a short wait can improve storage quality. Harvest day is the part that makes this method feel almost unfair compared with digging in a row. Lay down a tarp, an old sheet, or a piece of cardboard. If you are working over grass, that is fine too, but a tarp makes it easier to find every small potato. Tip the basket gently on its side and let the whole column of soil slide out. Do not yank the plant first. Let the basket empty, then break the soil apart with your hands. This is when you see whether your season was steady. Potatoes should not all be sitting in one little layer at the bottom. If the basket was built and hilled properly, you may find them at different depths through the mix. Some will be small, some medium, and if the plant had enough time and nutrition, some may be large enough for baking. The exact weight will depend on variety, light, basket size, weather, and care. A good basket can be impressive, but the better goal is not chasing a number. The goal is clean, usable food from a space most people waste. Brush the soil off with your hands, but do not wash the potatoes if you plan to store them. That surprises people. Clean potatoes look nicer on the kitchen counter, but water can shorten their storage life. Dry soil is protective. Washing adds moisture, and moisture invites rot. Wash them right before cooking, not right after harvest. As you sort, separate damaged potatoes from perfect ones. Any tuber with a cut, bruise, fork mark, soft spot, or insect damage should go into the kitchen pile and be used first. Do not put damaged potatoes into long-term storage with the good ones. One rotting potato can spoil the mood of the whole box, and sometimes the whole box itself. Also check for green skin. If a potato has only a tiny green patch, some gardeners cut that area away heavily, but the safer advice is simple. Do not eat green potatoes. Especially do not feed them to children or use them casually. Green is a warning that the tuber was exposed to light. Next season, that tells you to hill deeper, cover better, or make sure no potatoes were forming near the surface. After harvest, your job is not quite finished. The potatoes still need to cure. Curing is not complicated, but it is one of the most skipped steps in home gardens. Place the unwashed potatoes in a single layer somewhere dark, cool, and well ventilated. A garage, basement, shed, or shaded utility room can work if it is not too hot and not freezing. Leave them for about 10 days to 2 weeks. During that time, small surface injuries heal and the skins firm up. Do not pile them deep during curing. Air needs to move around them. Do not put them in the sun to dry faster. Sunlight is exactly what you do not want. Darkness protects the crop. This is the quiet finish to the whole season, and it is what turns fresh dug potatoes into food that can sit for months instead of days. After curing, move the potatoes into longer storage. The best place is dark, cool, and breathable. Not sealed in plastic, not beside onions, not in a warm pantry where they will wake up and sprout too soon. A cardboard box, a wooden crate, or a mesh sack works well if air can move and light stays out. Check the crop every few weeks. If one potato softens, sprouts heavily, or starts to rot, remove it before it affects the rest. This is the part of gardening people do not talk about enough. Growing food is only half the job. Keeping food is the other half. A basket of potatoes harvested in July or September does not mean much if half of them rot by the next month. But when they are cured and stored properly, that little container crop can become real food for soups, stews, roasting pans, breakfast skillets, and winter meals. That is when a small space method begins to feel serious. Now, if your first basket does not produce as much as you hoped, do not throw the method away. Read the harvest like a report card. The potatoes will usually tell you what happened. If you get tall, beautiful plants, but only a few tubers, look first at nitrogen and hilling. Too much nitrogen pushes leaves. Late hilling reduces the protected growing space. Next time, feed more gently and cover the stems earlier. If the potatoes are small all through the basket, look at water and crowding. Were there too many seed pieces? Did the basket dry out hard between waterings? Did a heat wave cook the container in the afternoon sun? Small potatoes often come from stress, and stress often comes from inconsistency. If you find rotten seed pieces or mushy potatoes, look at drainage, soil weight, and timing. Heavy garden soil in a basket can hold water like a sponge. A basket sitting flat in a puddle can stay wet at the bottom even when the top looks dry. And seed pieces planted before the cut sides have dried are more likely to rot before they establish. Next time, use a lighter mix, raise the basket slightly, and let cut seed pieces heal before planting. If you find green potatoes near the top or sides, that is not a mystery. Light reached them. The cure is simple but important. Hill more thoroughly, keep the soil level high enough, and use mulch near the end if the top layer starts settling. A potato should develop in darkness. Once it sees light, quality and safety both suffer. If the leaves yellow far too early, check for pests, disease, and moisture problems. A plant that naturally yellows at the end of the season is doing its job. A plant that collapses halfway through may be telling you the roots are wet, the leaves are under attack, or the basket has been allowed to dry and flood too many times. The hidden cause is often below the surface. One more correction is worth making. Do not keep reusing the same tired soil for potatoes year after year without refreshing it. Potatoes take nutrients, and container mix breaks down over time. After harvest, you can use that old mix in other parts of the garden if the plants were healthy, or blend it with compost for non-potato crops. But for the next potato basket, start with a fresh, loose, clean mix, or renew it heavily. If there were signs of disease, do not plant potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, or eggplants in that same mix right away. They are in the same plant family, and some problems can carry over. This is where a simple laundry basket method becomes more than a trick. It teaches you the rules of good potato growing in a way you can see. Loose soil matters. Drainage matters. Timing matters. Darkness matters. Watering rhythm matters. And none of those lessons require a large garden. For a small backyard, one basket may be enough to prove the method. For a patio, 2 baskets can give you an early crop and a later crop. On an allotment, baskets can sit along an edge where you do not want to dig. In a cooler climate, you can start when frost danger is easing and the weather begins to settle. In a warmer climate, a fall crop may be kinder than a summer one. The method is flexible, but the plant still has rules. If you want to make the next crop better, choose the variety with your season in mind. Early varieties are useful when summers get hot or your growing season is short. Main crop types may give larger storage potatoes if you have enough time. Waxy potatoes are excellent for boiling and salads. Floury types are better for baking and mashing. This is not just about yield. It is about growing the potato you will actually use in your kitchen. And keep records. Nothing fancy. Write down the variety, planting date, number of seed pieces, first hilling date, and harvest date. Note whether the basket was in full sun, morning sun, or too much heat. After one season, those notes are more valuable than another bag of fertilizer. After 3 seasons, you will know exactly what works in your own yard. That is the old lesson hidden inside this cheap little setup. Good gardening is not about buying the most expensive container. It is about understanding what the crop wants and removing the problems one by one. Potatoes want loose ground, steady moisture, room to form tubers, protection from light, and enough time to finish. A laundry basket can provide all of that if you treat it like a growing system, not a gimmick. So here is the simple plan. Get a sturdy basket with holes. Set it where the light is right before you fill it. Use certified seed potatoes. Start with a loose potting mix. Plant only a few pieces. Hill when the shoots reach 6 to 8 inches. Water by feel, not by guesswork. Watch the leaves. Protect the tubers from light. Wait for the plant to finish. Then tip the basket, sort the harvest, cure it in the dark, and store it properly. Do that, and even a small space can give you something solid, useful, and deeply satisfying. Not a decoration, not a handful of herbs. Real food from a corner of the patio, a strip beside the shed, or a sunny place outside the kitchen door. And the best part is how little digging it asks of you. No trenching, no fork through the middle of a good potato, no hunting through heavy clay. Just a basket, good soil, steady care, and a crop you can pour out with your hands. If you learned something useful today, type "grow" in the comments so I know you are putting this method to work. And if this helped you see potatoes a little differently, press like, because it helps more gardeners find simple, practical ways to grow real food in the space they already have.